Good morning. We are going to talk about outlines. You guys have the information that you need about how to make them. So after you do your outline, we need to make sure that you've done it correctly. So if you take your outline that you have prepared side by side with what we're going to talk about, then that will help you know whether or not you're doing it correctly or areas that you may need to correct or improve. All right? I'm going to bring up my screen and go through the outline that I shared with you guys. And if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, you just may not need some of the information. All right. Normally, it is best to have your name, the name of the assignment, the possible points that it's worth, and the course and the course number, and then whenever it's due. All right. This is a long time ago. The topic here was the Titanic. You don't always have to do that. You can start straight away if you want with your general purpose. Notice though how after general purpose, specific purpose, and central idea, it is tabbed over. So these are right here. So even when there's a second line, it is all tabbed over nice and neatly. It is just for the objectives. All right? General purpose, to inform. If it has anything more than that, it is wrong. If you do not understand why it needs to be just general purpose, please give me a ring. I'll explain it a bit here, but if you're confused still afterward, I want you to be clear. Feel free to give me a ring about any of this. All right? General purpose means that if you think of the word general, think quiz coming up, y'all, public speaking people, that it's the broad, basic agenda of what you want to do. Generally speaking, broadly speaking, I want to inform. Informing, of course, is just sharing and enhancing knowledge, and that is the agenda. Specific purpose is the goal of your speech. What do you want to leave people with? And when you're done, it has to begin with to inform the audience. If it was persuasion, to persuade the audience, okay? But since we're talking about informative speaking, it is to inform the audience about the Titanic. And then she adds one of the most famous tragedies in history. She could have said to inform the audience about the tragic history of the Titanic. A little shorter, a little more concise, but this certainly works. Central idea is your main points. It's a thesis statement almost, and it has to have three main points in it. That's what we're doing, three main points. They need to be clear, they need to be concise, use concrete language. I'm letting her get away with a little something here, but it still works. So her statement says the Titanic was a great ship. It sank on its inaugural sail, and its history was made into a movie. She could have said the Titanic was a great ship. It sank and was made into a movie. Clear enough, right? Clear enough. Nothing else need be said. The way that this is said here, it's fine. I have a little concern about great ship because what does that mean? Be very, very specific. It was a first of its kind. Here's a word for you, ship. I don't know, but this is going to work. Here we go. Introduction. A is the attention grabber. Does what you have, does what you say, grab the attention of the audience. Notice it is more than one sentence. Some people will give their quote or they'll ask a question and then think that they're done. No, 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 no. You have to say more. Here it says, an American writer named Morgan Robinson once wrote a book called The Wreck of the Titan. The book was about an unsinkable ship called the Titan that sailed from England to New York with many rich and famous passengers on board. On its journey, the Titan hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sank. Many lives were lost because there was not enough lifeboats. So, what is this strange? So, what is so strange about this? Well, The Wreck of the Titan was written 14 years before the Titanic sank, per se. Wow. Wow, that really gives you something. I told you before you could tell a story. This is telling a story. All right. And it gets to the point. It's like, oh my gosh. Because you're thinking, okay, they're talking about the Titanic. And then she said, nah, this happened 14 years prior to. So it's like, wow, okay, you have my attention. Tell me more. B is benefit. What's the audience reason to listen? The sinking of the Titanic was one of the largest non-war related disasters in history. And it's important to be knowledgeable about our past. She could have added more in there. How are you going to relate? Why should the audience know? It's important to be knowledgeable about our past. It is a great conversation piece, or be able to tell to your children or your family or your friends. There's a lot that you could tell and connect with people. Give us the why, the with them. What's in it for me? That's what the audience wants to know. C is credibility. Credibility is, why should people listen to you? And here she says, I have been fascinated with the history of the Titanic for as long as I can remember. I read and studied my collection of books about the Titanic many times and have done the research on the internet. This is fine. However, it should be expanded. I've been fascinated by the Titanic since as long as I can remember. Well, when can you remember? Were you 5? Were you 6? Were you 7? Tell us, it was for the last 15 years you've been fascinated. Give us some guidelines here, quantify some things. I read and studied my collection of books. What does that collection include? Is it 20 books, 30 books, 40 books? Is it videos? Is it television specials? What exactly is it? I've read my collection of over 25 books over and over. I've watched videos, I've seen movies, I've read articles. Tell what you've done. I've taken a class. I've talked to people, I've interviewed, whatever it is, tell us so that we can say, wow, this person is really, really knowledgeable about it. Your central idea and your preview needs to match. Your central idea in your preview, you're telling us what you're going to tell us. Here you can expand it. It doesn't have to be small. So she says, from the disaster to the movie, the sinking of the Titanic remains one of the most famous tragedies in history. Today, I will share information about the Titanic ship, its sinking, and the movie that it was made, right? That's boom, boom, boom. That's what we're going to talk about. Wonderful. Now she gives her transition, moving from one thing to the next. Let's examine some facts about the ship called the Titanic. Now you know what you're going to get. You're going to get some information about the Titanic, some facts, some things that have been verified. And then she goes on to give us this. Now, this outline that I shared with you all is longer than the one you will need because they had a longer time to speak. You guys know you have between 4 and 6 minutes, I believe. I gave you a 4 and 7. I'm not sure which. You want to make sure that you stay within your time limit. You're like, oh, but I got so much information I want to share. Take a look at it. What's the most important of it? Time yourself. And if you're still over, figure out what needs to come out. If you're under, time yourself again. Make sure that you're really on the right track, and then you can add something back should you really feel like you need to. All right. The body says here, first main point, the Titanic was thought to be the largest, safest, most luxurious ship ever built. This coincides with her central idea where she says the Titanic was a great ship. Why was it great? It was largest, it was safest, most luxurious. So that's what she's telling us here. Your central idea and your main points have to match. They need to be in the same way. She says at the time of her launch, it was the biggest existing ship and the largest movable object ever built. Now she gets into her support. You guys have to support what you say. It's not enough to just say something. You have to tell us why you say it. Why does it mean what it means? So that we know you're credible. Now she gives us this. She gives us the source. According to Geoff Tibballs, in his 1997 book, The Titanic, The Extraordinary Story of Unsinkable Ship, the Titanic was 882 feet long and weighed about 46,000 tons. Now, she gives you that information, and then she gives you an in-text citation. I call them parenthetical citations because they're in parentheses. She says, Tibballs, 1997. That's what you'll need to have in there. You won't say that in your speech. You'll say everything else that's here. Notice, of course, it's all in complete sentences. It's written very, very well. If there was a quote, you wouldn't say quote. Whatever the quote is, you would say it, you would write it out. All of it has to be in the outline. The outline is your blueprint. Your blueprint. It has everything in it. Everything. All right, next she says, it was 100 feet longer and 15,000 pounds heavier than the world's current largest ships. Thresh stated in Titanic, The Truth Behind the Disaster, published in 1992, that the Titanic accommodated around 2,345 passengers and 860 crew members. Again, Thresh, 1992. Here, I would, now because she's quoting this person, and you do want to put quotes around people, you don't want to paraphrase, put quotes around what people are saying. Here I would say about 2,300 if you're giving the speech. You don't want to give these precise numbers, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2,345, because people's minds will go to the math and not go back to what you're saying, especially people that are not as adept at math as you or some other people may be. The nice thing about the way that this is done with each of these main points, you can take them out as you need to or add more in if you have more time. So this is great. The beautiful accommodations of the Titanic were decorated and furnished with only the finest items. She gives you the source again, according to a quotation from Shipbuilders Magazine that is included in Peter Thrush's 1992 book Titanic. And then she quotes, everything has been done in regard to the furniture and fittings to make the first class accommodation more than equal to that provided in the finest hotels on shore. All right? Very, very nice. Take a look at your outline. Do you have your main point listed? Is it a full sentence? Do you have in your support what you need? Do you tell who said it? Who was the person that said it? Were they an author? Were they a televangelist? Who were they? Give us the context so that we can understand who said what. Okay? And then, of course, you can tell us the year that something was done. That gives us a little relatability to determine whether or not we think something is current enough for us to take note, unless, of course, you're talking about things that have to do with history, much like this. Okay? You'll do the same thing. Now you have to transition, and here she does. She has 6 different points you guys want. Okay? Her next transition says, because of the aforementioned safety features, the Titanic was deemed unsinkable, but tragedy occurred. If you remember, her central idea, her second point, was that it sank in its inaugural sailing. Okay? So now she tells us, the Titanic hit disaster head on when it ran into an iceberg 4 days after its departure. She told us it sank. This is what happens. Okay? And then she goes back into giving us the sources and supporting what she says. The beginning of the maiden voyage was mostly uneventful. Tibble stated that the ship departed from Queenstown in Ireland at 1:30 p.m. on April the 10th, 1912, destined for New York. The weather was perfect for sailing. It was blue skies, high winds, and a calm ocean. Now here, what I don't see that needs to be added are quotation marks. This is what he said, unless of course she's paraphrasing, and I don't want you guys to do it. Quote, you do not want people saying that you are plagiarizing. You will get into situations where you're giving a presentation at work and they'll say, well, who said that? I heard my boss say that. And you'll be thinking you're paraphrasing or you're just using it in your speech. No, give attribution to where it goes. My boss once said, blah, 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 blah. Or I heard in the coffee room someone say. So then people say, I said that. They didn't say that. Why are they using my stuff? You don't want that to happen. All right? You'll do the same thing over and over again. 1, 2, and 3 main points. She says, now that we've learned about the sinking of the Titanic, let's explore the movie. Wonderful. Goes into the 3rd main point. Let's go down to the conclusion. That's where we need to go. The conclusion. 2 parts to the conclusion, summary and the clincher. Her summary says, and it's a review of the main points. Today, I first discussed the Titanic itself, its sinking, and the movie made about the voyage. From the disaster to the movie, the sinking of the Titanic remains one of the most famous tragedies in history. Said very much like what was previewed. Think about this, you all. The specific purpose says that you want to tell us something about the Titanic. You want to inform the audience about the disaster of the Titanic. By the time they're done, that's what they should remember. You have had an opportunity to do it 3 different times. In your preview, you tell us you're going to talk about the great ship, its sinking, and the movie. In your main points, you tell us why the ship was great, how it sank, and then how it was made into a movie. That's twice they've heard your main points. Now again, in the conclusion, they are hearing your main points. So we talked about the boat, or the ship, I should say, the sinking, and the movie. If they leave with nothing else, They should leave knowing your 3 main points. Make sure they're clear, all right? No ambiguity there. Closure is a clincher. Leave them with a message here. She says, remember the wreck of the Titan, the story written 14 years before the Titanic sank. It now seems as if it was an eerie prophecy or a case of life imitating art. Whatever the case, the loss of lives on the Titanic was tremendous, and it is something that should never be forgotten. Okay? Notice that she doesn't tell you to go read books about the Titanic, go watch the movie, go do something. That's persuasion. Here she is just informing, and that's what she wants to do. Take a look at your outline. Does it do what she is doing here? If it does, kudos. If it doesn't, make the necessary changes. She should then have a bibliography. Some of you call it works cited. Fine. And then she does this in MLA or APA. Do it the correct way. She has the author, the year, when it was, where it was published, and all of that. All right? Woo! That's how you go over your outline. For those of you who submit a draft, you go back and you listen to this video along with it side by side. Stop it where you need to if I'm speaking too fast for you, or if you need to make changes or write down questions, and then come back. Ask me. All right? Hope this helps. See you soon.